This episode talks about the registered sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Some of this content includes areas of sexual assault. No details will be discussed. Viewer discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is experiencing sexual misconduct, please reach out to the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. All right, welcome back to Explain It Like I'm Voting, a podcast by The New Political. I hope everyone is ready to lock in with me today. I'm your host, Ollie Hunt, and today we are talking about Jeffrey Epstein. This is the kind of event that everyone kind of knows something about, whether it's the memes, the people that may or may not be involved, or Epstein Island. So the actual details can get kind of blurry very fast. So bear with me and let's dive in. All right, so Jeffrey Epstein surprisingly did not start out as a billionaire. He was born in the early 1950s. He dropped out of college and he ended up teaching math and physics at the Dalton School in New York. One of his students' dads took a liking to him and introduced him to a senior partner at Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns is a major Wall Street firm. So Epstein, he's teaching math. He knows his way around numbers. So he makes a name for himself, and he begins to be a partner at Bear Stearns for 4 years. But in 1982, he's kind of like, I can do this by myself. And he starts J. Epstein and Company. Now, J. Epstein and Company takes off. He gets rich very quickly, and he very quickly starts spending that cash. He buys a mansion in Florida, a ranch in New Mexico, and one of the biggest private mansions in New York. In 1998, he even buys a 72-acre island in the U.S. Virgin Islands called Little St. James. He decks this place out with villas, pools, and a freaking helipad. He had it all. Epstein was also connected to a lot of influential people, from politics to Hollywood to music. Most influential people that we've heard are Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Michael Jackson, etc., etc. They were all in this Epstein orbit. It's kind of like everyone just knows him. Despite having this very influential friend group, though, he was a pretty private guy. He didn't attend social events. He didn't eat out at restaurants. He was very elusive, which is interesting because in 2002, New York Magazine wanted to do a profile on him, and they asked Donald Trump, hey, what you think about the guy? And Trump called him a terrific guy and said he was a lot of fun to be with. So I guess he wasn't so elusive when you actually knew him, but, who am I to judge? So we know, about him. We know the nature of him now. So what happened? So, like I said, Epstein has this island. He holds parties for the rich on this island. And he hosts parties at basically between that and his Palm Beach home. He's hosting lots of parties. Things take a dark turn in 2005, though, when a 14-year-old girl from Florida comes forward with allegations of molestation from Epstein in his Florida home. Police then search the Florida home and find multiple photos of underage girls. Now, based on this evidence, he should have been charged with a federal crime and seen life in prison. He didn't get that. Instead, he got an 18-month prison sentence with work privileges 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I don't know about you, but I thought it was a 40-hour work week. Not whatever 12 times 6 is. Anyways, that's a joke of a plea deal, right? That is way, way, way lower than what he was supposed to get. He also had to register as a sex offender in Florida and New York. In the end, he only ended up serving about 13 months of his 18-month sentence. The big question of this, though, is What? Why? How? What? How did he get off with a measly 13-month sentence? A lot of people point to U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta. He handled Epstein's plea deal and met with Epstein's lawyer, who convinced Acosta to create the plea deal he faced and not tell the victims. That's illegal. The illegal part of that is the neglect to notify the victims. This violates the Crime Victims' Rights Act, which gives victims the right to be informed and heard at public court proceedings, which include plea bargains. Are we seeing the connections? Plea bargain, victims not notified do not go together. They are not matching Lego pieces. Anyways, in 2009, Epstein got out and more victims continued to come forward. One of the most well-known victims is Virginia Jeffrey, who accused Epstein and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, of trafficking her when she was just 17 to powerful men, including Prince Andrew. She comes forward with interviews, photos, all of this everyone denies. For almost a decade, the story quiets down. And just as in this case, we will take a pause and quickly run down a timeline of what's happened so far. All right, in 1953, Jeffrey Epstein is born. In the 1970s, he drops out of college and starts teaching at the Dalton School in New York. In the late 1970s to early 80s, he gets into Wall Street as a partner at Bear Stearns. In 1982, he starts J. Epstein and Company. In the 1990s, he starts to build this massive wealth and starts buying properties across the United States. And in 1998, he acquires Little St. James Island. In 2005, Florida parents report Epstein's assault on their 14-year-old daughter. Investigation finds more photos of underage girls. In 2008, Epstein gets an unprecedented plea deal. He receives 1.5 years, but only serves 13 months with work release. In 2009, Epstein is released. So there's going to be a stretch, and our story picks back up. In 2018, the Miami Herald runs a huge investigation into Acosta's plea deal. They're asking the same questions we are. How did this happen? Why did it happen? What did you do? Public outrage reignites, and suddenly the Epstein case is back on fire. People want to know. People want answers. They want him to be ruined. So, in July 2019, Epstein is arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. Now, in his plea deal, there was a policy that after this charge with the 13-month sentence, it would not allow more charges to come forward. So he would not be able to be charged. However, that was a Florida charge. He was charged in the state of Florida. He was arrested in 2019 by federal prosecutors. So the federal prosecutors were like, that's Florida's problem. You're our problem. Get in the back of the car. So he is awaiting trial, and he's been arrested. In August of 2019, just a month later, while he's awaiting trial, Epstein is found dead in his cell. It's ruled a suicide, though obviously this sparked like 1,000,001 controversies and conspiracy theories, but the story doesn't end with his death. He never goes on trial, but his associate and ex-girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, is arrested in 2020. In 2021, she's convicted of sex trafficking, conspiracy, and transporting minors for illegal sexual activity. It is found that she helped pick out women to bring to Epstein. So she is sentenced to 20 years in prison in June of 2022. So that's the whole case as we know of it today. So what are the files? What are the files? So the files are the documents that are federal record, and they detail Epstein's crimes, his associates, and evidence. These files could include flight logs, contact books, visitor logs, messages, financial records, calendars, anything that they could take as evidence. it could be in these files. Because this crime contained such sensitive material, these documents were sealed. This crime included minors. It is normal practice for crimes and criminal proceedings that include minors to not be available to the public. They are sealed and basically not shown light for as long as they can handle because of the sensitive nature of said crime. But the sealing of these records also means that whoever has been named as an associate or an accomplice, i.e. these important, powerful people that Jeffrey Epstein was keeping in his circle, their identities are also protected. So that kind of like, people are weighing these options. The public is like, we want to know who is in these files, but other people are like, but these victims are in these files and we're not giving you those names, obviously. Fast forward to January 2024. A judge unseals a big batch of documents, tens of thousands of pages. People are freaking out because they're like, oh my God, like this is so new. And the judge is like, actually, this is not new. It's been like reported through the decade that this has been going on in the media. This is just all of it in one place, fresh in your mind, so you can read through it. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to read a proceedings files, but they're kind of hard to read through. So, TBH, I would have just backtracked into the media so they could make it make sense for me. So, now that we're at a good stopping point, let's run down our second half of the timeline. A lot just happened. From 2015 to 2018, Virginia Jeffrey accuses Epstein and Maxwell publicly, multiple times. Trafficking accusations, sexual assault accusations, multiple different crimes, multiple different accusations at multiple different times. In July 2019, on his way back from his French apartment, Epstein is arrested by federal prosecutors. In August of 2019, he is found dead in his jail cell. This is ruled a suicide. In 2020, Maxwell is arrested. In 2021, she is convicted of sex trafficking and conspiracy. In 2022, she receives 20 years in prison. In January of 2024, a judge unseals a large batch of Epstein documents which spark new public interest. So, there has been a lot in the media about the connection between President Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. We know from the profile that New York Magazine wrote about Epstein that Donald Trump is close with him. We even know at the time that he knew him for about 15 years. So people were a little confused because he ran so closely with Jeffrey Epstein that they were a little bit worried that he might be named in those documents. And people were worried that if he releases them, is he not going to implicate himself? Some saw it as transparency, and others saw it as political theater. A third portion of people thought he might be trying to get ahead of whatever the files contained. Let's take a look at the files that we have already seen. We have seen files through Phase 1 of the Epstein files from Pam Bondi, Attorney General, and subpoenas on the Epstein estate. These include flight logs, evidence inventories, phone messages, calendars, financial records, and, extraordinarily enough, a 50th birthday book. Now, this 50th birthday book, it was made with, it was a leather-bound book. It was made with all of his friends and family. Like, they all wrote notes. There were some very heartfelt notes, some old pictures. There was also pictures of animals engaging in sexual activity, and a note from Trump written inside the outline of a woman's body, signed by Donald Trump himself. Now, the president has denied this being him. Let's talk about flight logs. Flight logs are going to have a lot of names on them, right? They're going to have anyone who steps foot on that plane, workers, people catching rides, people just coming once or twice, like their names are going to be on these flight logs. Just because they've been associated in these flight logs does not necessarily mean that they are associated with the crimes. Some unreleased files could implicate politicians, celebrities, businessmen, and all sorts of big influential people of America. So that's why every time the Epstein files come up, it seems like Risa, it seems like X and TikTok and all of the social media sites are blowing up with this big debate of whether or not it should be released. The questions that come in are, what is getting redacted if this gets released? How can we protect victims if this gets released? What counts as association versus participation if this gets released? Being named in the documents has been a bipartisan insult for years. Both Republicans and Democrats have been accusing each side of having a multitude of people on these files. Is being on the files mean engaging in the crime, or does it mean being in the wrong place at the wrong time? That is a very, very big question going around. And there's got to be a clear distinction, because if we release these files and assume that everyone who is named in these files was part of this crime, the Justice Department is going to have a very, very, very big caseload. So, as I say, not everyone who was in Epstein's orbit is part of the crimes committed. Recently, however, the House of Representatives approved a bill directing the Justice Department to release all files related to Jeffrey Epstein. The Senate then approved this bill pretty quickly, and it goes to President Trump, who has elected to sign it. Now, since the bill has been signed into law, a 30-day countdown will begin until the release of all files. However, let's put a little asterisk around all files, because all files does not mean after those 30 days are up that all of those files are just going to be publicly available for anyone to see. These are still legal documents. They're going to be heavily redacted. We may not get all of them. And it's very up in the air of what will be contained in this. I mean, you can go online and find phase 1 of the Epstein file release, and there are a lot of redactions. It's not going to be pretty cut and dry of who did what happened, who did this, who did that. Like, it's giving movie, but we need to lower our expectations. That being said, this was a very influential case in the world of influential people. I mean, as we can see, he had really big circles. And while we may not have lived it, our parents lived it, politicians lived it. It was a very big event, and it would be closure for a lot of people. So that was Jeffrey Epstein. I hope I taught you something today, and I hope that if you're a little confused, you leave a comment down below and ask me to answer some more of your questions. And if you have any cool ideas for some new episodes, drop a comment down below and let me know how you think. This has been Explain It Like I'm Voting with me, Ollie Hunt, and I'll see you guys next time.